Lisa Morgan stood at the observation deck of New Arcadia Research Station and watched the purple sun rise over the alien landscape. The morning light made the crystal trees shimmer like diamonds across the valley below. She had been the station commander for 3 years now and still found herself amazed by the beauty of this distant world. The coffee in her hands was real Earth coffee, shipped here at great expense, but some comforts were worth it. Behind her, the station hummed with quiet activity. Scientists from 2 different worlds worked side by side in the laboratories. Humans and elves had not always been friends, but here on Kepler 442b, they had built something special together. The research station was small, housing only 43 people, but it represented hope for peaceful cooperation between species. Dr. Aria, Moonwhisper, entered the observation deck carrying her own morning tea. The elf moved with the natural grace of her people, her silver hair catching the light as she joined Lisa at the window. Aria had become Lisa's closest friend during their time here, despite the old tensions between their peoples. They had learned to respect each other's different ways of thinking and working. The crystalline flora is showing unusual growth patterns in Sector 7, Aria said in her soft voice. The mineral absorption rates have increased by 12% over the past week. Lisa nodded and turned to face her friend. Any theories about what might be causing it? Perhaps the soil composition is changing due to seasonal shifts, Aria replied. The planetary cycle here is still not fully understood. We may need to extend our research timeline by several months to gather proper data. This was exactly the kind of discovery that made their work important. New Arcadia was studying plant life that could potentially revolutionize agriculture across the galaxy. The crystal trees could grow in almost any soil and produce nutrients that enhanced crop yields dramatically. If they could understand how these plants worked, they could help feed millions of people on dozens of worlds. Lieutenant Maya Brooks walked into the observation deck with a datapad in her hands. The young security officer looked concerned about something. Maya had been trained at the Earth Military Academy before volunteering for this peaceful assignment. She was competent and professional, but sometimes Lisa wondered if Maya missed the excitement of military life. Commander, I'm picking up some unusual energy readings at the edge of the star system, Maya reported. They could be natural phenomena, but I wanted to inform you about them. Lisa took the datapad and studied the readings. The energy signatures were faint and seemed to be moving in patterns that might indicate artificial origin. However, space was full of strange energy sources, and most of them turned out to be harmless natural events like solar storms or cosmic radiation. How long have you been detecting these signals? Lisa asked. About 6 hours, Maya replied. They appear and disappear in a pattern I can't identify. Could be equipment malfunction on our sensors. Aria leaned over to look at the datapad. Her elven eyes were better at detecting subtle patterns than human eyes. After a moment, she frowned, slightly. The intervals between appearances seem too regular for natural phenomena, she said quietly. Lisa considered their options. New Arcadia was a research station, not a military outpost. Their only defenses were basic shields and a few emergency weapons meant for dealing with dangerous wildlife. If there really was something artificial out there, they would need to contact the nearest military base for assistance. Keep monitoring the signals, Lisa decided. If they get stronger or move closer to our position, we'll send a message to Earth Command immediately. Maya nodded and left to return to her security station. Aria remained at the observation deck, still looking thoughtful about the energy readings. Lisa knew that elves had good instincts about danger, developed over thousands of years of survival on their forest world. You're worried about something, Lisa observed. My people have legends about ships that appear and disappear like ghosts in space, Aria said slowly. Most humans dismiss such stories as superstition, but elven memory goes back much further than human records. Lisa had heard some of these stories before. Ancient tales of mysterious raiders who attacked without warning and vanished just as quickly. Most historians believed these were myths or confused memories of natural disasters. But Aria's people had an oral tradition that was remarkably accurate about historical events. The day continued normally despite the mysterious energy readings. Scientists worked in their laboratories, analyzing soil samples and plant specimens. The hydroponics bay produced fresh vegetables for the station's meals. Communications with Earth were routine, discussing research progress and supply needs. Dr. Helen Carter was working in the xenobiology lab, studying the microscopic organisms that lived in symbiosis with the crystal trees. Helen had been Lisa's friend since their academy days and had specifically requested assignment to New Arcadia. She was brilliant at understanding how different life forms interacted with each other. The symbiotic relationship here is unlike anything we've seen before, Helen explained to a group of younger researchers. The plants and microorganisms share nutrients in ways that seem almost intelligent. It's as if they're communicating with each other at a cellular level. This kind of research was why New Arcadia existed. Understanding alien biology could lead to medical breakthroughs that would help both humans and elves. The knowledge they gained here could save countless lives across the galaxy. As evening approached, the energy readings became stronger and more frequent. Maya reported that the signals were definitely artificial and appeared to be getting closer to their star system. Lisa decided it was time to contact Earth Command and request guidance. The communication array sent their message toward Earth, but it would take several hours for the signal to reach its destination and several more hours for a reply to come back. In the meantime, they could only wait and monitor the situation. Arya joined Lisa in the command center as they watched the sensor displays. The energy signatures were now clearly visible as multiple objects moving in formation toward their planet. Whatever was out there, it was not a natural phenomenon. "Should we begin evacuation procedures?" Maya asked. Lisa considered this carefully. If they were wrong about the threat, evacuating would waste valuable research time and resources. But if they were right about danger approaching, delay could cost lives. The nearest escape pods could only hold half the station's population, and it would take multiple trips to evacuate everyone. Not yet, Lisa decided. We still don't know what we're dealing with. Continue monitoring and prepare the escape pods, for quick launch if necessary. The station's inhabitants went about their evening routines, unaware that their peaceful world was about to change forever. In the laboratories, important research continued. In the living quarters, people shared meals and conversations about their work and their homes on distant worlds. But in the command center, 3 women watched the sensor displays and wondered what was coming toward them through the darkness of space. The energy signatures were getting stronger, and soon they would have their answer about what was approaching New Arcadia Research Station. The warning alarms began screaming at dawn. Maya's voice echoed through the station corridors as she announced the emergency over the communication system. Ships had appeared at the edge of their star system, and they were moving fast toward the planet. Lisa rushed to the command center, still wearing her sleep clothes, her heart pounding as she realized their worst fears were coming true. Commander Nick Stormclaw stood on the bridge of her flagship as the Krillian fleet dropped out of hyperspace. The alien ships were dark and angular, designed for war rather than exploration. Nyx was a veteran warrior who had conquered 12 worlds for the Krillian Empire. Her scaled skin was marked with ritual scars that showed her rank and battle experience. To her, this mission was simple. Take the research data and eliminate any resistance. "Target the human research station," Nyx ordered her weapons officer. "Prepare to broadcast our demands." The Krillian fleet consisted of 15 warships, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything the research station could hope to defend against. They had studied human colonies for months and concluded that humans were weak creatures who preferred talking to fighting. This would be an easy victory. Lisa stared at the main screen in the command center as the alien ships appeared on their sensors. The vessels were massive, clearly built for warfare, and there were far too many of them for New Arcadia to resist. She had hoped they would never face this kind of situation, but her military training kicked in automatically. "All personnel to emergency stations," Lisa announced over the station-wide communication system. "This is not a drill. Prepare for possible evacuation." Arya arrived in the command center moments later, her usually calm expression showing fear for the first time since Lisa had known her. The elf had lived through attacks on her homeworld and recognized the signs of approaching violence. Her hands shook slightly as she helped Maya coordinate the emergency procedures. "We're receiving a transmission from the lead ship," Maya reported. "Put it on the main screen," Lisa ordered. Commander Nyx appeared on their monitor, her reptilian features cold and threatening. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed without question. Behind her, Other Krillian warriors prepared weapons and equipment for battle. "Humans of the research station," Nix began, "you will immediately transfer all research data to our ships and evacuate all non-human personnel. You have 1 hour to comply with our demands. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your facility." Lisa stepped forward to respond, drawing on her diplomatic training as well as her military background. She knew that buying time was their only hope until help could arrive from Earth. The nearest human military base was days away, but perhaps negotiation could prevent immediate violence. "I am Commander Lisa Morgan of New Arcadia Research Station," she replied calmly. "We are a peaceful scientific facility conducting botanical research. We have no military capabilities or strategic value. What do you want with our data?" Nix's expression showed contempt for what she saw as human weakness. In Krillian culture, strength was the only thing that mattered, and these humans had already shown their weakness by trying to talk instead of fight. "Your research will serve the Empire," Nix responded. "Comply with our demands or face the consequences of your defiance." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command center in tense silence. Lisa knew they had no choice but to prepare for the worst. Their research data was valuable, but it was not worth the lives of everyone on the station. However, she also knew that surrendering might not save them either. "Begin evacuation procedures immediately," Lisa ordered. "Priority goes to essential research data and civilian personnel." Throughout the station, people moved with desperate efficiency. Scientists grabbed their most important research files while technicians prepared the escape pods for launch. Helen worked frantically in the xenobiology lab, trying to save years of critical research data that could benefit the entire galaxy. Aria coordinated the evacuation of the Elven personnel, but many of them refused to leave their human colleagues behind. The bonds formed through years of working together were stronger than the fear of death. Several elves insisted on staying to help defend the station, despite having no military training. "You don't understand what you're dealing with," Aria told Lisa urgently. "Krillians don't take prisoners. Even if we surrender, they will kill us all to prevent us from reporting their location to Earth." Maya was already activating the station's limited defensive systems. The shields powered up with a low humming sound, and the few weapon emplacements extended from their hidden positions. These defenses were designed to deal with space debris and dangerous wildlife, not military assault, but they were better than nothing. The hour passed quickly. As the deadline approached, Lisa made her final decision. She would not hand over research that could help these aggressors conquer other worlds. If they wanted the data, they would have to take it by force. "This is our final answer," Lisa transmitted to the Krillian fleet. "We cannot comply with your demands. This station is under the protection of Earth and her allies." Nix received the response with satisfaction. She had expected the humans to resist eventually, and now she had justification for what she had planned. To do anyway. Destroying the station would send a message to other human colonies about the price of defying the Krillian Empire. "Begin the attack," Nix commanded. The first barrage of enemy fire struck New Arcadia's shields with devastating force. The energy barriers flickered and sparked under the assault, clearly not designed to withstand this level of violence. Warning. Lights flashed throughout the station as power systems struggled to maintain basic life support. Lisa ran through the corridors toward the weapons control room, knowing that their only hope was to buy enough time for the escape pods to launch. The station shook violently as more enemy fire struck the outer hull. Lights went out in sections as power conduits overloaded and failed. Helen was still in the xenobiology lab when the ceiling collapsed. She was trapped under heavy debris, but she managed to activate the emergency data transmission system before losing consciousness. Years of research about the crystal trees and their symbiotic organisms began broadcasting toward Earth, carrying knowledge that could change the future of agriculture across the galaxy. Maya coordinated the defense from the security center, targeting the enemy ships with their few functional weapons. The small laser arrays and missile launchers were like throwing stones at giants, but every shot that hit was a small victory. She knew they couldn't win, but she was determined to make the attackers pay for their aggression. Aria helped evacuate the last group of civilians to the escape pod bay. Many people were injured from falling debris and system failures throughout the station. The elven doctor used her natural healing abilities to stabilize the wounded, while human medics prepared them for transport. The shields finally failed after 20 minutes of constant bombardment. Without protection, the station's hull began to crack and tear under the enemy assault. Atmosphere rushed out through the breaches, and emergency force fields activated to seal the worst damage. Lisa reached the weapon control room and began manually targeting the enemy ships. She had trained for this kind of situation at the military academy, but she had never expected to use those skills in defense of a research station. Her shots were accurate, but their weapons simply weren't powerful enough to damage the armored Krillian vessels. The first escape pod launched successfully, carrying 15 people toward the edge of the star system where they hoped to jump to hyperspace and reach Earth. 2 more pods followed, but the fourth was destroyed by enemy fire before it could clear the station's docking bay. Maya's voice came over the communication system one last time. All remaining personnel to the final escape pod. Station destruction is imminent. Lisa looked around the weapon control room, knowing that someone had to stay behind to cover the final evacuation. The station's power core was damaged and would explode soon, but she could hold off the attackers for a few more minutes if she stayed at her post. "This is Commander Lisa Morgan," she transmitted to Earth through the emergency beacon. "New Arcadia Research Station is under attack by unknown hostile forces. We are transmitting all research, data, and evacuation records. Tell Admiral Kate Sullivan that humanity must respond to this aggression." The last escape pod launched just as the power core began its final meltdown sequence. Lisa remained at her station, firing the last functional weapons until the explosions reached her position. Her final thoughts were of her friends who had escaped, and her hope that Earth would make these attackers pay for their crimes. The research station exploded in a brilliant flash of light that was visible from space. Commander Nix watched the destruction with satisfaction, believing she had eliminated a minor threat without consequences. She had no idea that she had just awakened something far more dangerous than she could imagine. The escape pod, carrying Sarah Nightbreeze and 12 other survivors, limped into the Armstrong military base 3 days after the destruction of New Arcadia. The small vessel was damaged and running on emergency power, but it had managed to complete the journey to the nearest human military installation. Sarah, an elven engineer who had worked on the station's power systems, was the senior surviving officer from the research facility. Admiral Kate Sullivan was reviewing routine patrol reports when the emergency alert reached her office. She was a career military officer who had spent 30 years defending human colonies from pirates and natural disasters. Kate had never seen actual warfare between species, but she understood the implications of what had happened at New Arcadia. The survivors were brought to the medical bay for treatment, while Sarah was escorted directly to the command center. Fial Elf was exhausted and traumatized, but she insisted on delivering her report immediately. Her description of the attack and the systematic destruction of the research station sent shockwaves through the military command structure. "They gave us 1 hour to surrender all research data and evacuate non-human personnel," Sarah explained to Admiral Sullivan. When Commander Morgan refused, they opened fire without any further warning. The attack was clearly planned in advance. Kate listened to the report with growing anger. New Arcadia had been a symbol of peaceful cooperation between species, and its destruction was an act of unprovoked aggression that could not go unanswered. The Admiral immediately sent priority messages to Earth Command and began mobilizing the ships under her command. On Earth, the news of the massacre reached the highest levels of government within hours. President Claire Washington called an emergency session of the Defense Council to discuss humanity's response. The attack on New Arcadia was being treated as an act of war against both human and elven civilians. General Amy Patterson, the commander of human ground forces, argued for immediate military action. "We cannot allow this aggression to go unpunished," she told the council. "If we appear weak, other hostile species will see us as easy targets for future attacks." Dr. Chloe Martinez was called in from the Advanced Weapons Research Division to brief the council on humanity's military capabilities. For decades, human scientists had been developing defensive technologies in secret, hoping they would never be needed. Now it appeared that time had come to reveal what they had been building. "Our ships may appear to be simple exploration and cargo vessels," Dr. Martinez explained, "but they contain hidden weapon systems and defensive technologies that surpass anything currently known in the galaxy. We have been preparing for this kind of situation since first contact with other species." The UHS Retribution was humanity's most advanced warship, officially classified as a research vessel but actually designed as a powerful military platform. Captain Rebecca Stone had commanded the ship for 2 years, waiting for orders that she hoped would never come. Now she received word that her ship would lead humanity's response to the new Arcadia attack. Becca was a veteran of the asteroid mining conflicts and had proven herself as both a strategist and a fighter. Her crew was handpicked from the best officers in the human fleet, and they had trained extensively with the ship's advanced weapon systems. The Retribution looked like a standard exploration vessel from the outside, but it carried enough firepower to destroy an entire enemy fleet. Throughout human space, military commanders received secret orders to prepare their ships for combat operations. Vessels that had been disguised as civilian craft began powering up their hidden weapon systems and military-grade shields. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's peaceful appearance had been carefully calculated misdirection. Admiral Sullivan assembled her task force at the staging area near the edge of human territory. Ships arrived from dozens of colonies, their crews eager for revenge against the attackers who had destroyed New Arcadia. Many of the officers had friends or colleagues who had been stationed at the research facility. Maya Brooks had survived the attack and was recovering at the military hospital when Admiral Sullivan visited her. The young security officer provided detailed information about the enemy ships and their tactics, intelligence that would be crucial for planning the counterattack. "They underestimated us completely," Maya told the Admiral. "Their commander acted like we were helpless primitives who would surrender without a fight. She had no idea what kind of response she was triggering." Intelligence reports began arriving from human agents throughout the galaxy. The attackers had been identified as members of the Krillian Empire, an aggressive species that had been expanding their territory through conquest and intimidation. Their home systems were located in a distant region of space that few other species had explored. The Elven Council of Elders held an emergency session to discuss their response to the attack. Elder Lyrelay Starweaver, who had been Arya's mentor, spoke passionately about the need to support humanity's military action. The destruction of New Arcadia had killed elven civilians along with humans, making this an attack on both species. "For too long we have remained isolated from galactic politics," Lyrelay argued. "But the humans have proven themselves worthy allies, and we cannot abandon them in their time of need. I propose that we offer our full support to their military campaign." Dr. Martinez worked around the clock to prepare new weapon technologies for the human fleet. The research data that Helen had died transmitting from New Arcadia contained information about energy absorption and redirection that could be applied to defensive systems. In a way, the fallen scientist would still contribute to humanity's victory. Captain Stone conducted final preparations aboard the Retribution as the fleet prepared to depart for Krillian space. Her ship had been designed to appear harmless while carrying devastating firepower, and now she would have the chance to test those capabilities in actual combat. "All ships report ready for departure," came the signal from Admiral Sullivan's flagship. The human fleet consisted of 47 vessels, ranging from the massive Retribution down to fast attack ships that looked like simple cargo haulers. To any observer, it would appear to be a trading convoy rather than a military force. This deception was intentional and would give them a significant advantage in their first engagement with Krillian forces. As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Admiral Sullivan broadcast a message to all ship commanders. "We go to seek justice for the innocent people who died at New Arcadia. We will show the galaxy that humanity protects its own and punishes those who attack peaceful civilians. Let the enemy learn the price of their aggression." The jump to hyperspace was flawlessly coordinated, with all ships disappearing simultaneously into the swirling energy of faster-than-light travel. Their destination was the outer edge of Krillian territory, where intelligence reports indicated the location of the fleet that had attacked New Arcadia. Sarah Nightbreeze stood in the observation deck of Admiral Sullivan's flagship, watching the stars blur past as they traveled toward their target. The elf had volunteered to accompany the fleet as an advisor, despite the danger involved. She wanted to see justice done for her fallen friends and colleagues. Meanwhile, in Krillian space, Commander Nix was reporting the success of her mission to the High Command. She described the easy destruction of the human research station and the capture of valuable scientific data. The Krillian leaders were pleased with her efficiency and began planning additional attacks on human colonies. These humans appear to Be even weaker than our initial assessments indicated, Nix reported confidently. They offered no meaningful resistance and seemed completely unprepared for military action. I recommend immediate expansion of our operations into human territory. The Krillian High Command approved plans for attacks on 3 more human colonies, believing they had found easy targets for expansion of their empire. They had no idea that their successful raid had triggered the mobilization of a military force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. But in the depths of space, the human fleet raced toward Krillian territory with weapons charged and crews ready for battle. Admiral Sullivan sat in her command chair, studying intelligence reports about enemy capabilities and planning the attack that would announce humanity's arrival as a major military power. The sleeping giant had awakened, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity chose war over peace. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Krillian home system with perfect precision. Admiral Sullivan had chosen their arrival point carefully, positioning the ships where they could observe enemy installations while remaining hidden behind a large asteroid field. The element of surprise would be crucial for their first strike against an enemy that vastly outnumbered them. Captain Rebecca Stone stood on the bridge of the UHS Retribution, watching as her sensors revealed the true scale of Krillian military power. The enemy had built massive orbital shipyards around their homeworld, with hundreds of warships under construction or undergoing repairs. Defense platforms bristled with weapons designed to protect the system from invasion. Analysis confirms that this is the primary Krillian military installation, reported the ship's intelligence officer. We're detecting approximately 200 active warships and 3 times that many support vessels. Fleet Admiral Vera Cross had arrived from Earth aboard her flagship just hours before the attack began. As the Supreme Commander of Human Military Forces, she would personally oversee this first major engagement between humanity and an alien empire. Vera was known throughout the fleet for her tactical brilliance and her absolute commitment to protecting human civilians. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Major Dana Phillips and her elite commando team would infiltrate the main command station while the fleet engaged enemy ships in open battle. Once the Krillian command structure was disrupted, the human ships would systematically destroy their shipyards and orbital defenses. Kira Shadowmoon was the Elven Special Forces operative who had volunteered to accompany Dana's commandos. The elf possessed natural stealth abilities that would be invaluable for infiltrating enemy installations. She had insisted on participating in the mission as payment for the attack on New Arcadia. Remember, we need to disable their communications before they can warn other Krillian systems, Dana briefed her team. Once we control their command center, the fleet can proceed with the main assault without worrying about enemy reinforcements. War Matron. Zilnara was reviewing routine patrol reports when the first explosions lit up the orbital defense network. The Supreme Krillian military leader had commanded their forces for over 20 years, conquering dozens of worlds for the Empire. She had never faced an enemy that could penetrate their home system defenses. The human attack began with a coordinated strike against the outer sensor arrays. Ships that had appeared to be harmless cargo vessels suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems of devastating power. Kinetic projectiles traveling at significant fractions of light speed punched through Krillian shields as if they were made of paper. Captain Stone brought the Retribution to full combat power for the first time since its construction. The ship's main batteries fired electromagnetic pulse rounds that disabled enemy vessels without destroying them completely. Her orders were to capture as many Krillian ships as possible for intelligence gathering and war crimes evidence. "Target their propulsion systems first," Stone commanded her weapons officers. "I want those ships dead in space, not dead completely." The Krillian defenders responded quickly, but they were completely unprepared for the level of technology that humanity had deployed. Their energy weapons were designed to overwhelm traditional shields through sustained bombardment, but human defensive systems used adaptive frequencies that rendered most energy attacks ineffective. Dana's commando team launched from a stealth transport during the height of the battle, using the chaos of the fleet engagement to mask their approach to the main command station. Their small craft appeared to be debris on Krillian sensors, allowing them to dock with the enemy facility undetected. Kira led the team through the ventilation systems of the Krillian command station, her elven senses guiding them past security, sensors, and automated defenses. The layout of the facility was similar to other Krillian installations that human intelligence had studied, but the elf's natural abilities made navigation much easier. War Matron Zilnara watched in growing horror as her fleet was systematically dismantled by the human attackers. Ships that had seemed invincible in previous campaigns were being disabled or destroyed with terrifying efficiency. The humans fought with a precision and coordination that spoke of extensive military planning. "How many ships do the humans have?" she demanded of her intelligence officers. "Initial count shows 47 vessels," came the reply, "but their firepower is far beyond anything in our databases." The orbital shipyards began exploding as human warships targeted the construction facilities with surgical precision. Years of Krillian military buildup were being destroyed in a matter of hours. The message was clear. This was not just a military defeat, but a demonstration of overwhelming technological superiority. Major Phillips and her commandos fought their way through the command station's corridors, encountering fierce resistance from Krillian security forces. The enemy soldiers were brave and well-trained, but they were facing human special forces equipped with advanced armor and weapons that could penetrate any known defense. Weapons that can adapt their frequency to overcome any shield, Dana muttered, as she watched her rifle adjust its output automatically. "No wonder the enemy is having trouble with our fleet." Kira used her elven stealth abilities to outflank enemy positions, striking from unexpected directions and disappearing before the Krillians could respond effectively. Her natural speed and agility gave the human commandos a significant advantage. In close-quarters combat, the main Krillian fleet finally arrived to defend their homeworld, but they found themselves facing an enemy that had already crippled their orbital defenses and taken control of their command facilities. Admiral Sullivan had positioned her ships to intercept the reinforcements while Captain Stone continued her assault on the shipyards. "We have control of the enemy command center," Dana reported over the secure communication channel. "Their fleet coordination is now completely disrupted." War Matron Zilnara found herself trapped in her own command center as human soldiers took control of critical systems throughout the facility. She realized with growing despair that her forces had no answer to human military technology. The species she had dismissed as weak primitives had proven to be far more dangerous than the Krillian Empire. Fleet Admiral Cross observed the battle from her flagship, noting how effectively the human fleet was performing against overwhelming numerical odds. The months of secret preparation and technological development were paying off exactly as planned. Humanity was announcing its arrival as a major galactic power in the most dramatic way possible. "Signal all ships to begin phase 2 of the operation," Admiral Cross commanded. "I want every Krillian military installation in this system reduced to scrap metal." The systematic destruction of Krillian military power continued throughout the day. Human ships targeted shipyards, weapons factories, and training facilities with devastating precision. The enemy fleet tried desperately to defend their installations, but they were hopelessly outmatched by human technology and tactics. Captain Stone received reports that other human task forces were simultaneously attacking Krillian military bases throughout their territory. The operation was being conducted on a scale that demonstrated the true extent of human military preparation. This was not a simple revenge mission, but a coordinated campaign to eliminate the Krillian Empire as a military threat. Kira stood guard over captured Krillian officers, while Dana's team secured important intelligence data from the command center computers. The information they were gathering would be crucial for understanding the full extent of Krillian expansion and identifying other potential threats to galactic peace. Their records show attacks on 17 different species over the past 50 years, Dana reported to Admiral Cross. "They've been conquering and enslaving civilizations throughout this entire region of space." War Matron Zilnara was forced to watch as her life's work was systematically destroyed by an enemy she had fatally underestimated. The Krillian Empire's military power was being broken beyond any hope of recovery. She began to understand that the attack on New Arcadia had been the worst mistake in her species' history. As the battle entered its final phase, Admiral Sullivan received confirmation that Krillian forces throughout their territory were surrendering or fleeing toward unknown regions of space. The empire that had seemed so powerful just days before was collapsing under the weight of human military might. "Broadcast surrender terms to all remaining Krillian forces," Admiral Cross ordered. Any ship or installation that continues to resist will be destroyed without further warning. The response from the surviving Krillian commanders was immediate and complete. They had witnessed the destruction of their most powerful military installations and understood that continued resistance would only result in more casualties. The war that had begun with the attack on New Arcadia was effectively over, won by humanity in a matter of days, rather than the years of conflict that many had expected. President Claire Washington stood before the newly established Galactic Justice Tribunal, addressing representatives from dozens of species who had gathered to witness the trial of Krillian war criminals. The courtroom was located on Luna Station, humanity's first major diplomatic facility built specifically to handle the complex legal and political issues arising from the war. Commander Nyx Stormclaw sat in the defendant's chair, her scaled skin marked with scars from the battle that had ended her military career. The former Krillian fleet commander, who had ordered the destruction of New Arcadia, now faced charges of war crimes, genocide, and crimes against peace. Her trial had become a symbol of the new galactic order that humanity was establishing. Ambassador Rose Blackthorn served as the chief prosecutor for the tribunal. The experienced human diplomat had spent months gathering evidence of Krillian atrocities committed across their former empire. The testimony of survivors from 17 different species painted a picture of systematic conquest and enslavement that shocked even hardened military veterans. The evidence clearly shows that the attack on New Arcadia was not an isolated incident, Rose argued before the tribunal. It was part of a deliberate campaign of aggression that the Krillian Empire conducted against peaceful civilizations throughout their region of space. Prime Elder Thalion Goldleaf represented the Elven delegation. To the tribunal, the ancient elf had lived through centuries of galactic history and understood the importance of establishing clear legal precedents for dealing with interstellar warfare. His support for the human-led justice process had encouraged other species to participate in the proceedings. Justice delayed is justice denied, Thalion stated in his formal testimony. The victims of Krillian aggression deserve to see their attackers held accountable for their crimes against peace and civilization. Dr. Aria Moonwhisper had recovered from her injuries and returned to active duty as the director of the rebuilt New Arcadia Research Station. The new facility was larger and better defended than the original, serving as both a scientific center and a memorial to those who had died in the attack. Aria's testimony about the destruction of the original station was one of the most powerful moments of the trial. They gave us 1 hour to surrender everything we had worked years to achieve, Aria told the tribunal. When we refused to hand over research that could have been used to harm other worlds, they opened fire on civilians without any further warning. The trial proceedings were broadcast throughout the galaxy, allowing millions of beings to witness the establishment of new principles for interstellar law. Many species had never seen war criminals brought to justice in such a formal and transparent manner. The human approach to post-war justice was setting standards that would influence galactic politics for generations. Captain Rebecca Stone had been promoted to admiral following her performance during the war. She now commanded the Terra Defense Fleet, humanity's primary military force responsible for maintaining peace throughout their sphere of influence. The ships under her command patrolled trade routes and responded to requests for assistance from smaller civilizations. We learned during the war that our preference for peaceful solutions was seen as weakness by some species, Admiral Stone explained to a gathering of diplomatic officials. Now we make it clear that our choice of diplomacy over warfare is exactly that, a choice, not a limitation. Maya Brooks had accepted a position as security director for the rebuilt New Arcadia station. The young officer who had survived the original attack was now responsible for ensuring that such a tragedy could never happen again. The new station's defenses included both human military technology and elven natural warning systems. War matron Zilnara testified as a witness during the trial, describing the Krillian military culture that had led to the systematic attacks on peaceful civilizations. Her testimony revealed the extent to which the Krillian Empire had been planning expansion into human and elven territory. We believed that species who chose diplomacy over conquest were inherently weak and therefore legitimate targets for expansion, Zilnara admitted to the tribunal. We never considered that they might be choosing restraint rather than demonstrating inability. The verdict was unanimous. Nix and her co-defendants were found guilty on all charges and sentenced to life imprisonment. The tribunal also ordered the Krillian Empire to pay reparations to the families of all victims and to surrender all territory taken from other species through military conquest. President Washington announced the establishment of the Galactic Protection Alliance, a mutual defense organization that would prevent future aggression against peaceful civilizations. Humanity would provide military leadership and advanced technology, while other species would contribute intelligence, resources, and specialized capabilities. "We do not seek to rule the galaxy," President Washington declared at the signing ceremony. "But we will not allow peaceful species to be victimized by aggressive empires. The attack on New Arcadia taught us that sometimes the price of peace is the willingness to fight for it." Ambassador Blackthorne negotiated new trade agreements and mutual defense treaties with over 30 different species. The human diplomatic corps had expanded rapidly following the war, as other civilizations sought formal relationships with the galaxy's newest major power. The memorial service for the victims of New Arcadia was held on the anniversary of the attack. Lisa Morgan and Helen Carter were posthumously awarded the highest honors that both human and elven governments could bestow. Their sacrifice had sparked the chain of events that led to the liberation of 17 oppressed civilizations. Sarah Nightbreeze spoke at the memorial ceremony, representing all the survivors of the original attack. The elven engineer had become a symbol of interspecies cooperation and the importance of standing together against aggression. "They died believing in the possibility of peaceful cooperation between different species," Sarah said to the gathered crowd. "Their sacrifice reminded us that some ideals are worth fighting to protect." The rebuilt New Arcadia station continued the botanical research that had made the original facility so important. The crystal trees and their symbiotic organisms were now being cultivated on dozens of worlds, helping to solve food security problems for millions of people. The research that Helen had died protecting was saving lives throughout the galaxy. Dr. Chloe Martinez was appointed as the director of the new Galactic Technology Sharing Initiative. Her organization worked to ensure that advanced human military technology would be available to defend peaceful civilizations while preventing its use for aggressive purposes. "Technology itself is neutral," Dr. Martinez explained to a conference of scientists and diplomats. "What matters is how we choose to use it and who we choose to share it with." The former Krillian territories were gradually reorganized under the supervision of the Galactic Protection Alliance. Many of the species that had been conquered or enslaved by the Krillians were granted independence and assistance in rebuilding their civilizations. The process of healing would take decades, but the foundation for lasting peace had been established. Admiral Kate Sullivan retired from active military service and was appointed as the first director of the Galactic Peace Institute. Her organization would study the causes of interstellar conflicts and work to prevent future wars through diplomacy and early intervention. "We learned that strength without wisdom leads to tyranny, while wisdom without strength leads to victimization," Admiral Sullivan reflected in her final military report. "True security comes from the combination of both." As the first year after the war drew to a close, representatives from across the galaxy gathered at New Arcadia Station for the dedication of the Peace Memorial. The monument honored not only the victims of the Krillian attack, but all those who had died in conflicts throughout galactic history. The inscription on the memorial was written in dozens of languages, but its message was universal. They believed we would not respond. They learned that mercy is not weakness, and patience is not fear. In memory of all who died for the dream of peaceful coexistence among the stars. President Washington delivered the dedication speech to an audience that included former enemies alongside long-standing allies. The ceremony represented the new reality of galactic politics, where strength and compassion work together to maintain peace. The attack on New Arcadia was intended to demonstrate human weakness, President Washington concluded. Instead, it revealed our greatest strength, the willingness to fight for what we believe in, while never losing sight of why that fight is necessary. As the ceremony ended and the various delegations departed for their home worlds, Arya stood alone at the observation deck where she and Lisa had shared their morning conversations years before. The view was the same, but everything else had changed. The galaxy was safer now, but the price of that safety would never be forgotten. The crystal trees in the valley below continued their ancient dance with the purple sunlight, growing and thriving as they had for millions of years. They had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the coming of different species to their world, and now the establishment of a new order based on justice and mutual protection.